Welcome to the Little Falls Area Chamber of Commerce sponsored candidate forum for the House of Representatives. My name is Deborah Bowles. I'm the President CEO of the Little Falls Area Chamber of Commerce that proudly serves all of Morrison County. Joining us today are incumbent Ron Kresha and challenger Dustin Simmonds. This is a forum, it's not a debate. The candidates are to share with us why they feel they are the best person to represent 9B in the House of Representatives, not to address their opponents' strengths or perceived shortcomings. The candidates have received the questions in advance, and a coin toss determined that Dustin would respond to the first question first, and then we will rotate between the candidates. The Chamber reminds the public that the views expressed by the candidates during this session are those of the individual and not that of the Little Falls Area Chamber of Commerce. The candidates have 4 minutes to respond to the questions. A timer will note when there is 30 seconds left to speak, and the timer will again note when time has lapsed. Then you must complete the answer. If you wish to comment on something that your opponent said, let me know, and you will have 30 seconds to rebut and add to the conversation. So at this time, we are going to start off with Dustin Simmonds. And our first question today, please give an opening statement, including a short biography, why you are seeking election to the House of Representatives, and any groups and organizations that have endorsed you. Dustin?
Great. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today and those watching. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. Thank you to the City of Little Falls for allowing us to use this space. And thank you, Mr. Kresha, for attending here today. It's an honor to get a chance to let the voters get a chance to meet us. First of all, I grew up in Little Falls and always had a thirst for public service. Little Falls and the people here and the natural beauty of our area has always been a huge part of my identity. I've always wanted to do what I can to help make Little Falls and our area a better place. Growing up here, you get exposed to a lot of the harsh criticisms people have for the community, and when you grow up to see a lot of your friends and family begin to move away because they don't see a future here, it makes you want to do something about it. And I worked for 4 years on the Mayor's Youth Task Force to help give the youth in our community more access to amenities to help them lead more happy, productive lives. And I went to school at Central Lakes College and learned from great professors, and then eventually attended my last 2 years at the U of M, where I had the great honor of helping found the College Democrats of Minnesota, and was honored to be elected as treasurer of the Rural Caucus of the Young Democrats of America. Now, today I'm running because I believe that the people of this state and this area really want something different in politics. We've seen that the current state of our government is quite dysfunctional, and we want to get back to the good old-fashioned work of building bridges and working for a better community together. And I would be eternally honored to have the honor to work for you in St. Paul, and I look forward to getting a chance to hear your issues and champion them for you. And well,
And have any groups or organizations endorsed you?
Oh yes, I've been endorsed by the Minnesota AFL-CIO, Minnesota Nurses Association, as well as Education Minnesota and the Minnesota Farmers Union. It's a great honor to be endorsed by these groups. I've always grown up with a strong identification to the DFL as it represents the democratic farmer labor aspects of our state, and it really is, I believe, an all-encompassing party that does what it can to build a better state together. And it's an honor to be endorsed by them this year, and I humbly ask for your support in this election.
Great, thank you, Dustin. And Ron, your opening statement, including the groups and organizations that have endorsed you.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you to the Chamber and everyone for attending. So my background is a little bit of a storied past. I've done a lot of things. I started off in education and taught for almost 12 years, and then worked in technology and curriculum. And after that, I started an education online business, and now I have an economic development business. My personal life, I've been married to my wife 22 years, 5 kids. I have just an absolute wonderful family, son in the Air Force, daughter in college, and then one in, and actually this is the first time, as my wife was saying, we have kids in 5 different schools. I have one in Alaska, I have one in St. Paul, I have one at the high school, I have one in the middle school, and one at the elementary. So seeing all spectrums of life. The reason I got into legislative work was I'm a bit of a reluctant politician and elected official. I saw when I was in schools the value of helping kids through difficult times, helping kids get through a concept that they didn't understand, or to better themselves when they were working through some very difficult reading times, or just trying to get some of that education that we all sometimes take for granted. And when I had students that I had in 7th and 8th grade from Ivanhoe, Minnesota, calling me and inviting me back to their senior prom because they felt I had an impact, that was a great honor. And I took that seriously, I took it to heart. I took that further into when I started my companies, and I found the greatest value that I ever did was when I sat across the table and I hired somebody, or somebody would sit down with me and say, you know, Ron, because of the job you've offered me and what I've been able to do in this company, I can now afford Christmas presents for my kids, or maybe we can upgrade the car, or all these things. And you find out that really it's about families being able to grow, families being able to have safety and security, and take care of their kids. Most of the families that I meet in this area, it's not that they want a huge amount of wealth, but they just want to be able to put a little bit of money in their retirement. They want to be able to have a good health care, and they want to be able to provide for their kids. And when I saw those issues being thwarted at the legislature, I decided that I was going to try to do something about it. So I got involved with the legislator. I ran for office in 2012 to improve education, to help the kids that I had in my past, as well as really to help small businesses grow. And that's about me. Groups that have endorsed me, I have a black lab, a Brittany Spaniel. I have 4 daughters, a son, and a wife. They've all endorsed me. I've been endorsed twice by the voters, which has been a great honor, and this is my 3rd term running for re-election. Also endorsed by MCCL, Pro-Life, and I have a number of other ones, care providers. I have a long list, but to be honest, the only ones I really care about are the voters, and I have 39,000 people that I lobby for every day.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And as we rotate the questions, we will go to you for question number 2 first. As the Chamber interacts with its members, a reoccurring theme of finding and keeping employees is heard at all skill levels from every industry. The companion piece to this is the seemingly endless government programs that make it undesirable to work when the government benefits are better than a paycheck. What is your response to this?
So in order to really have economic development and growth, and we've known this has been coming. I joke about this, but I say it regularly. Part of the problem we have today is people didn't have 5 kids 25 years ago like we did, and we're running out of young workers. It's a problem we can't fix. It's like bringing 9 pregnant women into a room. You can't have a baby right now. You still have to wait the 9 months. And it's the same thing with economic development. We need these young kids to grow through. They need to get vocational training, and they need to get the skills that our employers are looking for. We can try to assist that. We've done lots of job programs. We've done lots of vocational programs. We're looking at 2-year colleges. We're trying to move incentives in that direction. But at the end of the day, and I think you mentioned this, Deb, it's a people problem. I still need to have people that are willing to work, as I grew up, to take those 3-4 jobs to make ends meet sometimes. And we don't have that. We don't have that work ethic anymore. We certainly need a security and safety net that the government can provide for someone that falls on hard times. But at the end of the day, that should not be their career. And we do have a problem. When you look at the numbers of the many of people that could be working that aren't, as well as the gap between people that are retiring, we're going to have to find a way to fill that gap. And the only way that's going to happen is by bringing people in, or starting to get people weaning off the entitlement programs and getting them into the workforce. And part of this also falls on the employers. As a business owner, I know that too many companies are simply just hiring for a niche, and they're not hiring the way they used to when I grew up, which is I hire good people and I train you for the job. And now I think I see too often where companies don't want the risk, and so what they do is they hire for a specific niche, hoping that they're going to not have somebody that can't work out. The fact of the matter is sometimes you have to, many times, you just have to take a risk on somebody and you have to help them along and improve them, and more often than not, people are surprised by the results rather than upset by the risks.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Dustin, I'll go back to you and I'll reread the question. As the Chamber interacts with its members, a reoccurring theme of finding and keeping employees is heard at all skill levels from every industry. The companion piece to this is the seemingly endless government programs that make it undesirable to work when the government benefits are better than a paycheck. What is your response to this?
Well, this is definitely a multifaceted problem. The people I know are the hardest workers I could ever imagine. My father, who did everything he could, worked tirelessly to give my family a good life, and my friends and family throughout the area have worked to better themselves and their families. And just the part that we find most disappointing is that there's jobs out here. There's a worker shortage in Minnesota, actually, and there's so many people who've been left underemployed by the recession, and I believe something like a jobs training package would be a great help to rural Minnesota. Helping people retool and have the skills they need to fill the positions available in their local community will help raise incomes and help people feel more fulfilled in their lives, and they'll want to stay in these jobs that give them a better life than any government check could. These services are essentially important to our communities. Programs like food stamps, these make a big difference for a lot of people who are going through rough times. But we need to ensure that there is a good transition process for those who are working to better themselves. Right now we have a lot of programs that are means tested, and once you pass a certain threshold, you are no longer eligible for the program. And a program that probably helped you be able to afford a very expensive procedure is no longer there to help you, and you're trapped in America's safety net. And that's the kind of things we need to change when it comes to our social policies. In terms of economic development and helping find and keep employees, making sure that we expand the means for workers and employers to connect and get the chance to find the right fit for a job, working on things like broadband and ensuring that we have a better coordinated system in our workforce centers is instrumental in helping us fill the gaps in our employment in our rural communities. And there's a lot of unique challenges we have that are going to require a good amount of training. We have, like Ron said, a lot of people retiring, and there's a lot of professionals who are on their way out, and we need to get people into those positions, but we need to make sure they're well trained, and that's going to take investment from our state, and ensuring that we do that is a top priority of mine. This helps raise incomes and helps people be able to put away and not have to live paycheck to paycheck. And the problem with the welfare system is it traps people in poverty, and we have to work to change specific things that allow people to work to better themselves. Like, for example, I had met a lot of college students who weren't able to work their way through college and tried to get food stamps, but couldn't do so because they weren't working 20 hours a week. And that's a lot to ask for when you're working on your thesis. And I just want to do what I can to help make policies that make sense for people, ones that help them work to better themselves every day. That's what I try to do when I wake up, is always work to try to best myself, and that's what I want to do as your state legislator, is work to best myself and really understand people and the kind of solutions that they are looking for. And I believe that Minnesota's greatest strength is our workers, and we have to make sure that we're always looking to the future to know what kind of challenges are going to lie ahead for us. And this aging population is going to become the standard, not the exception. And we need to be prepared for an older population, and that means sometimes allowing folks who want to start a second career after retirement. We have to be open to that. And, well, I just want to do everything I can to help workers have the tools they need to succeed.
Great. Thank you, Dustin. And rotating back to you for the next question. Morrison County, like most of Minnesota, faces the reality of an aging population, rising healthcare costs, and an increasing demand for government services with reduced revenue. Rather than taking the traditional approach of either increasing taxes or cutting spending, how about a third way, innovation and service redesign? Do you have any thoughts on how the state could take the lead on revising the required services to have a better return on the investment?
Absolutely. Again, this is going to be the standard for the future. We're going to have to rework our care systems to ensure that we have an efficient system that provides equitable access. And, well, we're going to be living in older communities, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Folks can have another career after they retire. They can become entrepreneurs, or they can better their community through public service. There's a lot of opportunities when it comes to the potential of our seniors in our communities, and ensuring that we build our communities with our future in mind is critical. Working to build a city that is friendly to both young children and our seniors will help make sure that everyone in between is taken care of. The kind of challenges that face the future for our aging populations is one that has been built around a system that we had built too short-sightedly. We need to encourage people to build rural transit systems that connect communities so that our seniors have the ability to stay in their homes and be continually active in their communities. And it's also equally important that not only do we support our seniors in this, but we also need to make sure that we employ workers, like I mentioned before, training new professionals to enter the field. But we also need to be welcoming to people from outside the state. The United States is uniquely positioned globally because of our openness to well-trained and skilled immigrants who want to come to our country and give to it and become parts of our community. And that's what gives our country such a unique advantage over the rest of the world. We are the melting pot that is still viewed as the land of opportunity. And I want to help make sure that we can still be that beacon for the world while ensuring that we're taking care of our folks here at home. Because there's people in our communities who are jobless, there's veterans who are homeless, and there are seniors who are struggling with illnesses, chronic illnesses that are very difficult to take care of on a fixed income. And these are the people I fight for, and I don't necessarily believe that an older community is all doom and gloom. I believe it can be quite a beautiful place where we have an extra elevated sense of purpose and shared future.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Ron, your thoughts on innovation and service redesign?
One of the reasons why I think that I'm asking for your vote, and I think that supporting me is beneficial to the community, is because I see these problems and I have solutions. I work through them. I sit on the pensions committee, for example, and one of the problems that we're facing with is mortality rates that are changing. People are living longer. And it's something that wasn't anticipated when many of these pensions and other programs were put in place. People are living a lifespan that has 10 to 15 years longer. And that's great. God bless them. But we have to figure out a way to pay for that. Because if they have pensions and they have medical costs, they have health benefits, all that's got to be covered. And it's a people problem. The way that's covered is, and the way our whole system is set up, is the younger generations move through as they come through middle age. They have very good careers, they have high salary, and they're able to contribute to the benefits of their future or the generation that's retiring. The problem is everything's flattened out now, and we've seen such a huge income distribution separation that the middle class isn't able to do that, and we're running out of people. So, some things that I have done specifically, and this is something that I worked hard on, is I didn't just go down there and talk about broadband, I led on broadband, because we need to attract workers here. We need need high-speed internet to our rural communities so that people can come back from the cities when they get their college degree and take care of mom and dad, or move back to the family farm, or take the homestead over, and they can work at a home. Kids today and those coming out of the college and moving into the service, they don't have to work in a cubicle. They don't have to work in an office anymore. They can work anywhere they want, and we have to give them access. So I was the lead on that. I took the lead in the entire state, doubled what was done the 2 years before that I was in office, and changed the innovation sector on that. The other thing that I was very proud of, and I hope we can continue this based on budgets, is I was able to put a very favorable education budget together. As the vice chair of education finance, which to move up in your second term and to have a position that high was a huge honor, and I was able to push some things like levy equalization and trying to help our rural communities be competitive. At the end of the day, we need to be competitive, because we're not, Minnesota's not fighting for jobs with Iowa, Wisconsin anymore. What's happening is rural Minnesota is fighting St. Paul for jobs. Rural Minnesota is fighting Minneapolis and St. Cloud. So we've got to be as competitive as anybody else, and we've got to get these kids to come back here, because when you come back, you get a job, you buy a house, you pay taxes, you go to church, you buy cars, and the economy starts to move. If those things don't happen and you don't get capital moving through the economy, then it falls on the local governments to look at tax revenues and see how they have to adjust, or they have to cut services. It's not a hard problem on the surface, but the solutions are very, very difficult, because you're making decisions about people. And at the end of the day, I've been trying to bring more opportunity back to rural Minnesota to make it the Midwest economic engine, because when people come in, they drive us forward, and it makes it a little bit easier for government, who's not always trying to wiggle out of very, very tricky budget situations.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And we go back to you for the next question. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We hear consistently that they are overtaxed and are burdened with excessive insurance and labor law requirements. What do you feel can be done to help these small businesses succeed?
Government needs to get out of their pocket, get off their back, and get out of their way. I've run a number of small businesses. I can tell you it's very difficult, all the paperwork that you have to do, all the regulations that come up. Before I was in the majority, the governor decided a great idea was to tax 1099 employees, 1099 contractors. These are people that are moving from service contract to service contract and can move anywhere. These are the folks we wanted. And they thought it was a great idea to tax them, which they're not going to become these service providers if they get more tax on that. We saw the farmers' repair tax. Our agriculture industry is as much of a small business, and they're growing larger and larger, but these are the small family farms that are trying to make it, and now we were going to throw a repair tax on them, and now what we've done is we've thrown a very onerous, and this is completely at the feet of the governor, healthcare system. We threw a $300 million MNsure program out there, when that $300 million could have gone into jobs programs. That $300 million could have been used as a supplemental pool for all the people that are losing insurance today to help them stay on coverage. Instead, we threw that at a website that didn't work for the first 2 years, and then we gave them a raise. That's just stupid. That's just dumb. That's bad policy making. That's bad government. So we have got to change the way we treat small businesses. If you want to fill the Main Street here, we passed in the tax bill the first $100,000 of the property value would be tax exempt. People that are trying to start retail shops, they're not wealthy. They have an idea. They want to do a sewing shop. They maybe want to do an apparel shop. They've got to go pay for that rent, and we keep throwing more and more property taxes out there so that they can't start a Main Street business. That's just dumb. So we got to get out of their pockets, we got to get off their back, and we got to get out of their way. We got to let them hire people, and most people keep thinking we need these huge manufacturing companies. Go look at the statistics, folks. It's the companies that have 10 or less employees that are driving our growth. We need more good ideas. We need more young kids to move in the area, and let them start a business. Let them fail 10 times like I did in my businesses, because eventually they're going to get it right. But that's what happens, and we got to be okay with that risk.
Thank you, Ron. Dustin, what do you feel can be done to help small businesses succeed?
Well, when it comes to my priorities for our small businesses, my three priorities are job training, working on reforming our tax system, and as well as ensuring that we get more state investment in projects that help bridge the gap between rural and metro economies. Minnesota's right now was in 2014 according to Forbes, one of the best states for business in the country, and then again here in 2016 we fell a little bit, but that's because we're not adapting to and remaining competitive, like Mr. Kresha said. We've got some of the best workers in the entire country, some of the best educated people working in high-tech manufacturing and different high-tech positions, and it's important that we continue to encourage this, but we also need to ensure that these businesses can give their workers the raises they deserve and ensure that they can invest in new equipment or new space. There's all sorts of specific regulations that our state currently enacts that make no sense. For one, when it comes to job training, we don't allow our businesses to contract out for training on a system that may be from a foreign country, and there's not anyone in our state that can offer that training. And as well as we need to look to states like Utah and North Carolina, states that are dropping their income taxes, and finding ways to compensate those so they're not just more tax giveaways. We need to additionally look at things like tax expenditures, which aren't audited the same kind of way traditional spending is in our state. These kind of things often fly under the radar as special little gifts for special interests. And we need to evaluate these and sunset these to ensure that we can ensure that they're doing what they're intended to as policy. Again, when you look at Minnesota, there are some troubling trends. We do see less startups. We see us falling behind when it comes to our education capabilities. We need to work on things like the achievement gap in our state to ensure that we continue to have the robust workforce we do. But we also need to take lessons from other states that are cutting taxes. Minnesota is among the highest taxing states in the entire country, and there are different ways that we can make up that income besides taxing people's income, which is one of the hardest hitting taxes that takes right off the top. Despite all this, we have to make sure that we take the cautionary tale of North Carolina. They made all the right choices when it came to policy on the economic front, but when you're doing things like supporting bathroom bills that try to dictate who goes where, nobody wants the government in the bathroom with you. And these are the kind of policies that can scare off a lot of employers who don't want to have that kind of policy looming over their business. Businesses in Minnesota have always been the driving force in our economy. It employs more than half of our workforce, and our chief concerns are the workforce shortage, taxes being too high, and the high cost of doing business in Minnesota. As a DFLer, I see both sides of this issue. I mean, we need to ensure that people aren't being exploited, but too often that's the excuse for tying down businesses that are people just doing what they can to make their own income. And I think it's time that we do give our businesses in Minnesota some breathing room.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin. And we will come back to you for the next question. If elected, what would be different in Morrison County because of your presence in the legislature?
Well, the whole heart of my pitch is I want to do this whole thing different. I grew up here in Little Falls, and I didn't come from a particularly well-off family or one that was more interested in politics than any average person. I grew up with a strong sense of community and caring for one another, but that was my mother's side, Margaret, and then my father, who always taught me that nothing's free. And everything has to come from somewhere. These two lessons really guided me to do what I can to work for others, and it's not about political parties to me. Political parties are a means to an end. They serve their purpose. They're supposed to be a shortcut for voters to be able to help better evaluate a candidate. But the current state of our polarized politics has caused most of the party's nominees to be further on the sides. I want to help reverse that trend and bring people back to the middle. Do what I can to help build bridges between parties and get us back to working again, being reliable in state government. And I want to focus on issues that don't get talked about. Things like the addiction problem in our communities that is affecting so many different families. I've lost friends of my own that I went to high school with excuse me. Anyway, just these issues strike me near and dear, and these are the reasons that I'm running, is to work for the people who I grew up with, the people I learned from, and the people who gave me jobs and my first chance when it came to being out, striking it out on my own. There's a couple specific projects that I would like to see finished in this area, in addition to bringing something different to politics. It's something like the Veterans State Bike Trail, which would be a huge economic boost to our community. That would make Little Falls the southernmost city in relation to the Twin Cities for this 400-mile bike trail, which would be a huge economic boost because the trails industry in Minnesota is $3.5 billion. And imagine just if a fraction were to come through our downtown and the kind of economic opportunities that it would create. Again, the heart of my pitch is I want to do this different. I want to get a chance to represent the people of our district and work towards helping them bring their visions of their communities to fruition and being the communities that they want to be. I believe in a government we can be proud of, and I want to help make that happen. And if I'm lucky enough to win this election, I will remain eternally loyal to the people of this district so that I can best represent you and help restore your faith in democracy. I hope to show a lot of young people in this community. It doesn't matter how you grew up or where you come from. You can really make a difference in your community as long as you keep at it and show people that you have a heart for improving people's lives and doing good in the world. If I could say one thing that I hope to bring to government, it would be humility. And if I'm elected, I think that's something that would be different.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Ron, what would be different if you were elected?
Well, if I'm reelected, nothing will be different.
Reelected.
I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And first of all, I should add, I mean, one of the things it's nice to see people like Mr. Simmonds step up and run, because we need to get more young people involved. But throughout this entire campaign, I've heard people talk about broadband. I've heard them talk about the Camp Ripley Trail. I've heard them talk about the opioids, which I'm also leading on in the task force. Talk about education and talk about some of the issues of economic development. Those are all issues I've led on. Those are all issues that I'm down in St. Paul pushing for every day. When it came to broadband, I made sure that that was an important issue. I made sure that rural Minnesota wasn't forgotten. Even though I had to fight many Metro legislators, and I had to fight many people that already had great broadband who frankly told me, Ron, if you guys want better broadband, just move to the Twin Cities. Well, that's not my answer. My answer is no, we're going to get it because that, or we're going to put a toll booth up when you come and use our resources, because that's the type of mentality that we have. The second thing, I hear the Camp Ripley's Veterans Trail. I got that through the bonding bill 2 years ago. I got that when I was in the minority, and I fought with the other side to say, hey, that's important to us up here. We have a great resource. We can connect the Sioux Line Trail to the Paul Bunyan Trail. We can bring it right up through through Camp Ripley and leverage our resources, we want to offer that amenity. So I got that done. I don't just talk about things, I move things. When it came to education, I did my very best for that. I talked to as many schools as I could, and I fought hard for rural Minnesota schools. I fought against the Eden Prairies of the world that have 2 practice facilities on the that are indoor. I fought against the areas where they have a Viking stadium, a Saints stadium. Now they're coming up on a soccer stadium. Things that we don't get out here, but we just want to be able to give our kids a good education. We want to give them some good jobs. So when you talk about what you're going to see with me and what would happen if I get reelected, I work tirelessly. I work hard, and I talk to many people, many industries, and I work across the aisle. I keep hearing this, there's everyone's so splintered down there. I passed 5 bills in the last 2 sessions. 4 of those bills I got nobody to vote against, and 1 of those bills I only had 8 people vote against. So think about that. Of 134 legislators, I got the whole House to agree with me 4 times, and only 8 of them dissented with me. I have no problem, and I don't look at it this way. I don't say I need to work across the aisle. I'm a business guy. I need to get it done, and I will find out who I need to work with to get it done, to get it for my area, and that's what I'll do. And if it means I have to find some Democrats to help me support some things, great, we're going to swap some issues. If it means I have to build a coalition of Republicans, great. But at the end of the day, my job is bringing people together and making it better for the area that I serve. At the end of the day, when I know I've done it right, I know that I can sit down at the dinner table with my kids and they're proud of me. I know my head can hit the pillow and I can say a moment of thanks to the God that I believe in and my faith, and I can wake up the next day and know that I'm going to give everything I have. And that's what you're going to get with me if you reelect me.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Question number 6, we're going to go back to Ron to answer first on, and I'm going to reword it a little bit. The question originally was there anything that we did not ask you today that you'd like to share with the audience? And maybe a better way is, what would be your top 3 priorities if you were elected?
Education is right at the center of me, innovation and broadband and economic development, but I will tell you the issue that keeps me up at night is child protection. That is the issue that I wrangle through every day, and I'm leading on that. And here's why. We have kids, when we talk about the achievement gap, or we talk about the racial disparities, we talk about the jobs and the lack of people, let's go back to the root of the problem. We are aborting children at a phenomenal rate. We are cutting off our supply of future people that are going to grow up and see their potential realized as they take on jobs. And then we have a culture where right now we have 47,000 children who are abused and neglected, children that will never get a chance to reach who they fully are because mom and dad didn't take on the responsibility. For whatever reason, sometimes I get it, sometimes there's some hard difficulties, but in a lot of cases, there are parents out there that just simply treat their children horribly. And that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. And those kids, when I look at those kids, those are the most vulnerable. Those are the ones, if anybody should be fighting for them, it should be us. Because they have no voice. They have zero. And that's probably my number 1 issue, the one that I get the most passionate about. And if we're really going to make a change in our achievement gap, our juvenile justice system, and getting these kids a better opportunity, get them off the opioids, get through the chronic inebriations, we've got to look at breaking the generational cycle of, frankly, people that are treating many, many kids terribly.
Thank you, Ron. Dustin?
Wow. What would be my 3 priorities? Well, my first priority would definitely, like I had mentioned, be to work on economic development in this community, helping folks better themselves and their family by being able to afford replacing their alternator, or being able to fix the storm door or paint the house, and not have to worry about the next paycheck. I've grown up here and known too many families who've struggled paycheck to paycheck, day to day, and we need to get incomes rising here. We need to show the potential of our community with bold ideas that can really help usher in the 21st century rural America that I know can be there, which would make my second issue, and ensuring that we confront opioid abuse head on, ensure that we connect our police forces as well as our hospitals with the resources they need to help make sure that folks have somebody there who can help them through one of the most difficult struggles of their life. Someone who can be supportive while they do what they can to better themselves. And we can, help ensure that those who found themselves in the wrong situation, and when they're sitting in jail, we can provide them with the necessary tools to not go back to that way of life afterward. And number 3 would be ensure that we give a voice to young people in this state, in this community, and this country. Like Ron mentioned, children don't get a chance to come to legislative meetings or get on the news. They too often are the silent victims of so many of our world's problems. And that's why I want to do what I can to help make sure we can prevent things like unnecessary abortions by ensuring that families have the access to resources they need to ensure there's proper care, ensure that we have things like parental leave so that when a child is born, the parents can build that crucial lifelong bond with their child in its first weeks, and making sure that people have access to health care to make sure that we keep that mortality rate down for infants and mothers, because it is on the rise. And the fact that that's happening in a state like ours, which prizes itself on an excellent health care system, is outrageous. And I want to do everything I can to advance the issue of pro-life policies. And it's my criticism that both parties have just gotten so polarized on the issue, they're just deadlocked and never really going to do anything about it unless someone goes in there with the determination to build those bridges. It's so important to me that people in this community have the tools they need to be the masters of their own destiny. There's a lot of things that we got to confront as a society that government can't fix. We don't have every solution to every problem, and it's probably a good thing, but that means a lot of the time we have to search within ourselves for the kind of changes we want to see in the world. I like to quote great leaders, and Gandhi's probably my mother's favorite. Be the change you want to see in the world, and that's the kind of leadership I hope to bring to our community and to our state capital. And I hope to show other legislators that this isn't about winning political points for their party. It's about getting back to the good old-fashioned work of providing a state that people can rely on, that's not being shut down, and having a budget crisis. It'd just be good to be able to focus on living life and working and succeeding and being happy. So those would probably be my top priorities.
All right. And we will close up today with the last closing statement. We'd like you to summarize your campaign position on various issues. Or just summarize.
Just summarize
why you're running.
Okay.
What you're doing.
Well, again, I love my community. I love the people here. This is one of the most beautiful patches of earth I could ever imagine, and I want to ensure that we preserve our incredible heritage here and make sure that we have a vision for the future. So many bright and aspiring entrepreneurs live in this community, but don't get the chance to have their talents realized here. And it's about ensuring that we make the proper investments to ensure that communities like ours can have the chance to be, again, really the master of their own destiny. I studied political science, city planning, and economics at the University of Minnesota, and I did everything I could to ensure that I would be best prepared to be a steward for the issues of our community. And when I was in the youth task force, I learned a lot of them firsthand. And they're not always the issues that are being talked about on talk shows. A lot of the time it's, hey, can you help make sure that I don't get my gas shut off in the winter, or make sure that it's actually coming? Helping ensure that somebody who got pulled over and had their license revoked because they didn't have their insurance on them, and they get that all straightened out and get pulled over again and have a problem because there's a miscommunication in the bureaucracy of government. And working on casework for the people of this state to help them not have to be constantly burdened with the failures or the shortfallings of government is what I want to help unleash people's creativity and ideas without having to be burdened by a overbearing government. And, pardon me here, fighting for the little guy. That's what I've always been about. My father was a union man who always believed that fighting for the union guy was the most righteous path, and I'd have to agree. You know, billionaires or big corporations, they have their interests in lobbyists, and we don't get lobbyists. We have to rely on a legislator who knows our stories, who knows our struggles, who was there with us through those struggles and can take them as their own and do whatever they can. And if that takes standing up to convention and challenging their own party, that's what it takes, because we're not here to win for a party. I'm here to win for my mom and dad, my brothers and sisters, my friends and neighbors, the people who've helped me up through my life and taught me the lessons that I live by. And ensuring that those people get to live their life to the fullest, living in decency and comfort is paramount. And making sure that people have the opportunity to work hard and live by their work is incredibly important. And I think it's about time that the people of this country get a voice that's really looking out for people who aren't always the first ones being heard from in the state offices. And I want to make sure that I can be there to carry the issues that we care about and keep you well informed and up to date the entire way so that we can really be on this journey together. And that's probably, again, the core message of my campaign. I want to do this different for you.
Thank you, Dustin. Ron, your closing statements?
Well, thank you again, and again, thank you to my opponent, Mr. Simmonds, for running. I will take issue with a couple of things. There's a different path and different track. First of all, we're running for a state government. We're running policies. There's 67 Senate districts. There's 134 representative districts. To go down there, we have to fight for everything we can. And that's what we do. That's the way our founders set the system up. There's going to be conflict, but the way you get through things is you work through that conflict, you fight tooth and nail for it. Folks, we're making policy and we're governing. Everything, the differences between the two of us, we're not running for student council in high school. We're not writing nice Hallmark cards with nice platitudes on top. At the end of the day, we're fighting hard for resources that are either going to go to my district or not go to my district. And at the end of the day, if you're in my way and I'm trying to get things from my district, I'm going to find a way to get around you. If people want to come down there and sing Kumbaya in the rotunda, God bless you, but that's not how we get things done. You build coalitions, you work through things, you don't talk about unintended abortions, you talk about the fact that we're killing kids. You talk about the fact that if we're going to do things right, we're going to respect people's religious rights, we're going to respect their communities, and we're going to respect who they are, and we're going to fight for those down in St. Paul, because St. Paul will strip those away. If you've ever worked close with me, you know I have a hard passion. I get it when you say we should fight, and you darn right we should fight for it. But the only way we're going to get things for this community is sometimes you've got to break some eggs to make an omelet. And I'm just okay with that. And like I said, we can get along as long as you're helping me get my stuff through. But if you're on the opposite side of me, like the Democrats who tried to pass the light rail to stop me from getting a good tax bill with good benefits for our agriculture community, I'm not going to be happy about it. When we pass a bill with 90% of the legislators who sign it, and then we send it to the governor who shoves it back down our throat and vetoes it, and doesn't pass that through because he says he needs light rail for the Twin Cities, and then goes around us, and then won't bring us back to special session, darn right I'm mad. And I'm not going to go write a Hallmark card and thank him for it. I'm going to go right back at him and say, you took away agriculture benefits from my area that needs to grow in horrible price times. That's not right. Okay, if the governor really cares about us, if the DFL party really cares, why aren't we having a special session today to deal with the healthcare crisis? The governor decided to call Illini and the nurses in for 17 hours to work through the benefits. Why hasn't he called in Minshew and all the cronies that he put together for that into his mansion and say, you need to fix this? So this isn't wonderful stuff, folks. This is hard work. At the end of the day, we have to set the best environment up for our people, and my job is to protect my community against some of the very onerous policies that can come out of St. Paul, Minneapolis. But that's what I'm going to do day in and day out, and that's who I am. And like I said, I'm a pretty simple guy. What you see is what you get, and I will do everything I can to make sure that our community grows, that my kids have access to good schools and education, and more importantly, that people still have the right to believe in the faith that they believe in and that they're not ostracized for it. And let's just quit killing kids. Let's quit talking about it as these accidental abortions. We're aborting kids. That's wrong.
Thank you, Ron. That concludes our program for today. We want to thank Ron Kresha and Dustin Simmonds for being with us today. Our thanks also go to Great River Television and Mark for recording it for rebroadcast, and to the City of Little Falls for allowing us to use their facility today. And as always, the Chamber encourages you to be an informed voter and get out and vote on this November 8th if you haven't voted already. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you think we're going to have this astronomical voter turnout because people have been able to vote